Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a first look at the Week 5 NFL slate on Draftkings. We're going to go position by position. We're going to build out a first look lineup for this Week 5 slate. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about every single player at each position. I don't want this video to be, 2 hours long. This is going to be a very quick run through, just kind of skimming through the position, looking at some guys that maybe stand out based on salary, based on matchup, based on, game environment, implied totals. We'll kind of do that for each position, but before we do get started with the breakdown, as always, I would appreciate it if you guys would drop a like down below and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new here. I'm uploading a ton of NFL content right now. I'm trying to get up NFL videos, 4 to 5 videos a week covering the main slate, covering the showdown slates, and NBA season's right around the corner. NBA season starts in like 2 weeks from today. So when the NBA regular season gets here, I'll be making NBA videos as well. I'm covering that too. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you have notifications on so that way you get notified every time I do upload a new video. And also comment down below. Let me know some of your favorite kind of first look plays for this Week 5 slate. Some guys that do stand out to you. Let me know how your Week 4 went. I had a really good week last week. I had a really big win on Yahoo. I was able to have one of my biggest DFS wins of all time. So that was a fun week. Last week was at least on Yahoo. Hopefully we can keep it going for this Week 5 slate. But let's start off at quarterback. Go through the position, just kind of skim through, see what options stand out here. So at the top, you got Kyler Murray at 8K. I think Kyler Murray once again is going to be a top pay-up option for me at quarterback this week. Kyler Murray's kind of been my favorite pay-up quarterback almost every week so far. I think that's probably the case once again this week at home against the 49ers. This game did open with a 53.5 total. It's come down to 50.5, but still 50.5 total here between the Cardinals and the 49ers. Kyler Murray, eventually is going to have one of these like 35, 40-point games. Obviously, weeks 1 and 2, he was able to do that. These last 2 games, hasn't really done much. We've kind of seen floor games from Kyler Murray, which is crazy that, 22 DraftKings points is his floor. But that just shows you how much upside this guy has. He has 35, 40-point potential, can throw for 300 plus yards, can run for 80, 100 yards. I know last week, and I think both of these last 2 weeks, James Conner's gotten like 2 goal line touchdowns. You give those touchdowns to Kyler Murray, and obviously he's going to put up like 30 DK points. So eventually, Kyler's going to get all the touchdowns one of these weeks. The Cardinals are going to put up 35 points, and Kyler Murray's going to have 5 touchdowns. It's going to happen at some point. So yeah, I think at 8K, Kyler Murray is still the top pay-up option at quarterback for me. You got Tom Brady against the Dolphins. I think he's fine. Aaron Rodgers against the Bengals. Tournament play, I don't know if these are guys I'm going to be considering like for single entry or for cash games. Jalen Hurts at 7K, I do have a good amount of interest in against Carolina. We know Jalen Hurts, a dual threat quarterback. Tougher matchup against the Panthers, but Jalen Hurts just has so much upside. Even at a 7K price point, he still is someone that I think, looks like a really good option. I think this Eagles-Panthers game is going to be a game I actually do kind of like on both sides. There's some guys that do stand out on both sides that we'll talk about later in the video. But even Dak Prescott against the Giants at home, Dak Prescott I think at 6,900 looks like a really good option. That right now this Cowboys-Giants game, highest total on the slate at 52. So Dak Prescott, definitely think I could see myself going there. Sam Darnold was in my winning Yahoo lineup last week, so Sam Darnold has kind of a special place in my heart. But I don't think I'm going to be going to Sam Darnold on DraftKings. He's just too expensive at 6,600. Not much interest in him. Some other guys like Derek Carr, been really good this year at home against the Bears. Maybe I could see going to Derek Carr at 6,100, but more of just like a tournament play. Daniel Jones, good matchup against the Cowboys at 6K. Again, that game has the highest total on the slate. Daniel Jones coming off a monster game last week against the Saints. Over 30 DraftKings points for him. Threw the ball 40 times. We've seen Daniel Jones, show some rushing upside this year. He's always been a decent running quarterback, so in a good matchup against the Cowboys, I think he might go a little under the radar this week. I think at 6K, he could be viable for sure. Trey Lance, I think, assuming that Jimmy Garoppolo does not play this week, I think Trey Lance is going to be the best value quarterback on the board. He obviously took over for Jimmy Garoppolo last week. He started the second half in place of Jimmy G, put up over 20 DraftKings points in the second half alone. Had a really good performance, looked really good, completed 50% of his passes, 157 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, also ran for 41 yards as well. That's one thing that Trey Lance does offer is that dual threat ability. It's very rare to find quarterbacks this cheap, 5,700, that have dual threat upside in a good matchup against the Cardinals in a high total game. I'm assuming Jimmy Garoppolo's not playing this week. Well, obviously that'll be something we have to keep an eye on. But if he's out, I think Trey Lance is probably going to be one of the best like point per dollar quarterbacks on the board this week. I'll be interested to see where, when the projections come out, where he's projected at. So at 5,700, yeah, Trey Lance looks like a good kind of first look quarterback, assuming that Jimmy Garoppolo does not play this week. If Jimmy G plays, then obviously we'll be off of Trey Lance. But like that's probably it for quarterback. Like there's not a ton down here that I love. I played Justin Fields last week in my main DraftKings lineup. It didn't go well, but Justin Fields did kind of get unlucky. He didn't look that bad. He just didn't score any touchdowns. David Montgomery had 2 rushing touchdowns. Damian Williams had a rushing touchdown as well. If you give those 3 touchdowns to Justin Fields, it's obviously a totally different scenario. Then he's got 20 DraftKings points. So he honestly wasn't bad last week. He just didn't score any touchdowns. And, obviously if your quarterback doesn't score any touchdowns, he's not going to have a good day for fantasy. So maybe we could go back to Justin Fields if he starts again. But, Trey Lance is probably going to be the best value quarterback on the board this week, assuming Jimmy G doesn't play. So that's kind of just a quick rundown of the quarterback position, what stands out kind of first look, in my opinion. Moving on to running back, looking at running back at the top, Derrick Henry at 9K against Jacksonville. Great spot here for Derrick Henry. It seems like every single year he just goes absolutely nuclear every time he faces the Jaguars. We know the opportunity, the massive volume is going to be there for Derrick Henry. He got 35 freaking touches last week. And I said in my video, in the final look video, with the scenario that A.J. Brown and Julio Jones maybe could not play, we would see, massive volume for Derrick Henry. And surely enough, A.J. Brown and Julio were both out last week, and Derrick Henry touched the ball 35 times. I know, the game went to overtime, but still, really, really good spot for Derrick Henry at 9K. He's obviously a top option. Christian McCaffrey, if he plays, will be a top option. We'll have to keep an eye on his status. Christian McCaffrey, pretty much anytime he's on the slate, is going to be someone that I consider paying up for. As long as he's not like on any sort of workload or workload restriction, he should be a good option. I assume that if he does play, he's going to be fully healthy. I doubt they would put him back out there if he's not fully healthy. So if CMC plays at 8,700 against the Eagles, who have been pretty bad against the run this year, I think CMC looks like a good option. Kamara against Washington, tougher spot. Don't know if I'm going to go to Kamara. I think I prefer these other guys. Dalvin Cook at home against the Lions might be my favorite pay-up running back right now. I know Dalvin Cook did not have a great game last week against Cleveland, but now he's going to have a full week to heal, to practice, and all this stuff. He's going to be able to get some full practices in. I assume he gets back to his full workload this week against the Lions, and obviously this is a much better matchup. I mean, Cleveland might be one of the best defensive teams in the league this year. They're going to be a tough team to run on. They're going to be a tough team just to score points on. That's not the case with the Lions. We know the Lions are a team you can run on. They're probably going to be one of the worst defensive teams by the end of the season. It is a great spot for Dalvin Cook at 8,400. Man, I think he might be my favorite kind of pay-up running back right now, but we'll have to see, if CMC plays. If CMC plays, I'm obviously going to have interest in him. And you can't go wrong with Derrick Henry either. I think I might prefer the savings, though, in a good matchup for Dalvin Cook and go with Dalvin Cook for now at 8,400. Since we went a little bit cheaper at quarterback, we're going to have some salary to fit in these expensive running backs. And I want to go ahead and just plug in a cheap defense. I already skimmed through the defense position, or defense, and there's a lot of good value at defense this week. You got Jacksonville at home against Tennessee. We saw how much Tennessee struggled last week without Julio and without A.J. Brown. Ryan Tannehill took a ton of sacks. Their offense just couldn't get much going. If A.J. Brown and Julio are out again, you got the Jaguars defense for cheap. My favorite defense, though, definitely first look. You got Washington at home against the Saints. I mean, I know Jameis Winston is not throwing the ball much this year, but he still is a very turnover-prone quarterback. Washington still has a really good defensive line that can get pressure on the quarterback. Their defense hasn't been as good as everyone expected so far, but this is still a talented team with Chase Young, Montez Sweat. They're going to get some pressure on Jameis Winston. Winston, we know, will turn the ball over. At 2,300, yeah, Washington's defense, definitely my favorite first-look defense. Let's go ahead and plug them in and just kind of see, what that can free us up with for salary for the rest of our lineup. But going back to running back, Austin Eckler, Saquon, Zeke in the mid-range, all fine options. I think Saquon and Zeke are probably my two favorites. Just, high total game, 52 implied total, highest total on the slate. I think both Saquon and Zeke look like pretty good plays. Saquon's been great these last 2 weeks, starting to look like his old self, getting that big-time workload, getting a ton of carries, getting some pass game usage as well. We should continue to expect 20-plus touches on a weekly basis for Saquon. Good matchup here against the Cowboys. At 7,300, I definitely like Saquon in the mid-range. Same goes for Zeke. Najee Harris, tougher matchup against Denver, not the best game environment. Denver-Pittsburgh, I'm pretty sure, that Denver-Pittsburgh has the lowest total on the slate right now. It's tied with the Texans-Patriots for lowest total on the slate. I don't think Denver-Pittsburgh is going to be a game that we really stack up much, but Najee Harris is always viable just because of the amount of touches that he's going to get, especially in the passing game. Nick Chubb, great matchup here against the Chargers. The Chargers have been really bad against the run this season. I'm pretty high on Nick Chubb this week. Just kind of first look, Nick Chubb is going to be someone that I think goes pretty low owned. Like, nobody's really been playing Nick Chubb so far this year. He's been low owned almost every single slate so far. He had a good week 1 against KC, but really ever since then, we haven't seen another ceiling game from Nick Chubb. But we know he gets a ton of usage, especially through the ground. Not going to get much pass game usage, which is obviously a concern, especially on DraftKings where you do get full PBR scoring. You want running backs that are going to catch a couple balls. That's the one negative with Nick Chubb, but he's going to probably get 18 to 20 carries. He can run for 100-plus yards and multiple touchdowns any week, and the Chargers have been really bad against the run this season. I do like Nick Chubb quite a bit, and I think, even like in cash games, he might be viable. I don't know if he'll be a cash game consideration for me, but definitely tournaments. I'm going to have some interest in Nick Chubb this week at 6,700. Let's plug him into our first look lineup. And then with the rest of the running back position, there's plenty of other options here, other guys you could go to. Obviously, we could play one of these guys in the flex if we want to, but David Montgomery doesn't seem like he's going to play this week, so that brings up Damian Williams at 5,600. The price tag did jump up. Obviously, DraftKings adjusted for the fact that David Montgomery would probably not play this week. They had bumped up the price for Damian Williams, but even at 5,600, I think he's still viable. He should be close to a workhorse running back. He should get close to the same amount of touches that David Montgomery was getting and pretty much just kind of fill his role. And he's always been pretty talented. When he was with the Chiefs, he showed some talent whenever he would get the opportunity, whenever he would get the touches. He's a guy that, they can utilize in the pass game as well. We know the Bears are not going to throw the ball much. I mean, they seem very content on just running the ball as much as possible. So 5,600, Damian Williams, assuming David Montgomery doesn't play, which obviously seems like he's going to be out. Yeah, Damian Williams, I do have some interest in. James Robinson at 6K against Tennessee. I mean, James Robinson played like over 90% of the snaps last week, I'm pretty sure. I want to double check that, but I'm pretty sure he played over 90% of the snaps. Yeah, 95% of the snaps last week for James Robinson. Carlos Hyde was inactive last week, so I think that might have helped James Robinson a good amount. We'll have to see if Hyde plays this week. I don't know if he's going to play yet. If he's inactive, we could see 90+% of the snaps for James Robinson again. He got like almost 20 touches last week. Yeah, he got 19 touches. At 6K against Tennessee, I mean, yeah, James Robinson, I think, is a good mid-range play. Chase Edmonds been getting good volume. James Conner's kind of been stealing all the touchdowns from Chase Edmonds, but Chase Edmonds has still been getting touches. 18 touches week 3, 16 touches last week, getting really good usage in the passing game, which you love to see. Obviously, that is very valuable on DraftKings to get running backs with that kind of, pass game usage. Edmonds in the mid-range, I think, is someone we could look to. Gio Bernard was inactive last week, and they didn't really involve Ronald Jones much. It was kind of Leonard Fournette that got all the touches, 23 touches for Leonard Fournette in that Sunday night game against New England. In a scenario where Gio Bernard's not playing, in a scenario where Gio Bernard is out again this week, we could see 20-plus touches for Leonard Fournette, and at 5,200, he's definitely someone we could look to in the 5K range. That he's someone that does stand out kind of first look. But that's probably it for running back. I think we kind of touched on most of the guys that stand out first look. Let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver and hit on some of these guys. So at the top of the wide receiver position, Devontae Adams, 8,200 against Cincinnati. I mean, yeah, Devontae Adams looks like a top play this week if you can fit him in. He's going to be a top projected option at the wide receiver position basically every single week. He's pretty much one of the most matchup-proof wide receivers in the league. I don't care who he's going up against. We know the targets are going to be there. We know Aaron Rodgers is going to get the ball to Devontae Adams. I mean, 11 targets last week against Pittsburgh, 18 targets the week before that against San Fran. Against Cincinnati, I don't think Cincinnati really has anyone that can stop Devontae Adams. 8,200, he's a top receiver play this week. It's just a matter of, if you can fit him in or not. DJ Moore was in my winning lineup last week on Yahoo. Obviously, DJ Moore also has a special place in my heart, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to him this week at 7,500. That price tag has come way up there. But still, DJ Moore is super talented. You could obviously go to him. D-Hop, Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin, Mike Williams. I mean, all these guys are viable. I think in the mid-range, though, the 6K range, this is where we get some underpriced guys. Keenan Allen, 6,500. definitely stands out to me as being underpriced. Now, I just mentioned earlier how Cleveland has a really good defense. I don't think we're going to see a ton of teams scoring much on Cleveland this year, but the Chargers, I think, could be an exception. This Chargers offense is so good. Justin Herbert is, probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. He's not, in my opinion, he might be like a top 5 quarterback in the league. So, yeah, Keenan Allen is 6,500. Even in a tougher matchup against a good Browns defense, I still think Keenan Allen is underpriced. We know the target volume is going to be there. I mean, double-digit targets in 3 of their 4 games. He's another kind of matchup-proof receiver. Like, Keenan Allen just always finds ways to get open. Gives you one of the highest floors at the wide receiver position. Like, most weeks you're going to get double-digit DK points from Keenan Allen, and if he can find the end zone once or twice, he's got 25, 30-point upside. 6,500 is too cheap. We already have Nick Chubb in our lineup, so I want to get some correlation there. Run it back on the other side. Go with Keenan Allen at 6,500. Like him a lot in this mid-range. There's some other guys you could go to here. Deontay Johnson just getting massive volume, and if Chase Claypool's out again, you could definitely go to Deontay Johnson, even though, that game environment against Denver is not the best. I think Deontay could still be a good, one-off play. CeeDee Lamb busted last week. His price tag's come down, though, because of that. I think, going back to CeeDee Lamb is obviously totally fine. I think CeeDee Lamb is a good play at 6,200. Odell burned me last week. Odell was a guy that I was pretty high on. I think it's fine to go back to Odell this week. The opportunity was there. He got the targets. Baker Mayfield, him and Baker Mayfield couldn't connect on anything. He only caught 2 of his 7 targets. There was one play where Odell was wide open down the sideline, and Baker Mayfield threw it behind him. It would have been an easy touchdown if Mayfield hit him in the chest, but Mayfield missed the pass or threw a bad pass. Odell could have had a way better week than he did last week. I think going back to him at 6K is totally fine. He should be a lot lower owned this week than he was last week. In the 5K range, Devontae Smith, especially like in my Jalen Hurts lineups, I'm definitely going to have Jalen Hurts in my player pool. I will for sure be stacking him with Devontae Smith, who seems to be the clear target for Jalen Hurts this year. Jamar Chase, 5,800. Don't mind going him, especially if T. Higgins doesn't play again. Same with Tyler Boyd. Antonio Brown, only 5,200. He got a lot of volume Sunday night against New England. 11 targets, 7 catches, 63 yards. 5,200 is pretty cheap for Antonio Brown. We know this Tampa Bay team's going to throw the ball a ton. Tom Brady's probably going to attempt 35, 40 passes, or he's probably going to drop back 35, 40 times. AB could be looking at double-digit targets once again at only 5,200. Yeah, I think he's for sure someone we could look to. Christian Kirk I liked last week. That didn't really go well, but I think going back to Christian Kirk, especially in Kyler Murray stacks, makes some sense. Laviska Shenault, if DJ Shark is out again, or if DJ Shark's already been ruled out. So, yeah, with DJ Shark out, Laviska Shenault, I think, is a guy we could look to at 4,800. He should see a few more targets without DJ Shark. Rondale Moore, in Kyler Murray stacks, I think Rondale Moore is more of a tournament play, but definitely viable. There's a guy, though, that's super cheap I want to mention. So, Curtis Samuel was minimum salary last week. And he's minimum salary once again this week. Now, he was on sort of a pitch count last week. He didn't play his full allotment of snaps. I don't think really anyone expected him to because he had been away for the team from a while. He was injured. He barely practiced at all with the team. I don't think he practiced at all with them, for most of the summer. But he did play last week. He played 37% of the snaps, saw 4 targets, 4 catches for 19 yards. I had some interest in Curtis Samuel last week just because of the 3K salary price, or just because of the 3K price point. If he would have been priced at 5K, I wouldn't have played Curtis Samuel, but I did have interest in him at 3K. And the fact that he's 3K again this week does make me like Curtis Samuel a good amount, especially since, he's going to have a full week to practice, to get ready for this game. I don't think really anyone expected him to be active last week, but he surprisingly was active for that game. They brought him off the IR. Now he's going to have a full week to prepare for this game against New Orleans. Going to have a full week to practice. Obviously, we should probably expect him to play more snaps than he did last week. He's probably going to see a few more targets than he did last week as well. At only 3K, we're not going to get Curtis Samuel at this price point for very long. At some point, his price tag is going to start to rise, especially as he gets more playing time, as he starts to get, just more involved. So, yeah, 3K, really, really good value. I think Curtis Samuel's definitely one of the better cheap options on the slate just right now. It's always hard to find value at the beginning of the week, but I think Curtis Samuel looks really good at 3K. Let's kind of move on to the tight end position. We'll come back to wide receiver to fill out the rest of our lineup, but at tight end, we could pay up here if we wanted to. I don't think this is going to be a week I pay up at tight end, especially with Travis Kelce off of the main slate. 7,300 for Darren Waller. Don't think I'd be going there like in single entry or anything. That's probably just more of like a large field tournament play. I expect Darren Waller will be pretty low owned this week. I don't think he's going to project very well at that salary. But you can always play Darren Waller. George Kittle would probably be my favorite tight end to go to, especially if Trey Lance does wind up starting. I think we could look to pair George Kittle and Trey Lance together. George Kittle did get 11 targets last week. We've yet to see that big game from George Kittle, that big 100-yard, multiple touchdown game, but we know that's in the range of outcomes for him. He's still getting the volume. The opportunity is still there. It's only a matter of time before George Kittle pops off for 20, 25 DraftKings points. At only 5,600, in a good matchup against Arizona, in a good game environment, in a game with a high total, I like George Kittle the most, I think, at tight end, like out of all the pay-up options. Obviously, without Travis Kelce, that takes one of our pay-up options off the board that we would normally have. At 5,600, I think George Kittle's the guy I like most at tight end, and especially since we have Trey Lance in our lineup, might as well stack him up with George Kittle, obviously assuming that Trey Lance plays this week. But there's plenty of other tight ends you could go to. Obviously, if you have Dalvin Cook, you could run it back with someone on the Detroit side. You could play TJ Hawkinson in some of your Dalvin Cook lineups. Dallas Goedert, 5,100, probably won't go there. That does feel a little bit too expensive for Goedert. I know he had a good game last week, but there's other tight ends I think I'd rather just target for cheaper. Dalton Schultz, back-to-back good games from him. 7 targets week 3, 8 targets last week. He's found the end zone in back-to-back games. Price tag's coming up at 4,400, but Dalton Schultz is a fine option in the 4K range. There's some good value at tight end this week. There's definitely some guys below 4K that stand out to me. Jared Cook, after a big game Monday night against the Raiders, he played over 70% of the snaps week 3, and I think he played over 70% of the snaps again last week, or Monday night. Only played 52% of the snaps Monday night against the Raiders, but still was targeted 7 times. I know he ran a lot of routes as well. If they're going to keep involving Jared Cook like this, giving him 5, 6, 7 targets a week at only 3,600, yeah, Jared Cook is someone we could look to as a value tight end. Zach Ertz getting targets, 15 targets these last 2 games at 3,400. He's another tight end I think looks good for cheap. Cam Brate, assuming Gronk doesn't play, I think Cameron Brate looks like a fine value at 3,300. Evan Ingram, I liked a lot last week, especially with Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton both out. Ingram got the opportunity. He got 6 targets, just didn't really get anything going, didn't really complete any long field plays. His longest catch was 8 yards. So at 3,200, though, in a good matchup against Dallas, in a good game environment, in a high total game, I think going back to Evan Ingram is totally fine. Evan Ingram was in my best lineup on Yahoo, which is annoying. He was one of my lowest owned guys, like in my winning lineup on Yahoo. He was like 3% owned, and obviously he had a terrible game. Pretty annoying there, but I'm fine going back to Evan Ingram this week. The opportunity has been there. 6 targets in both games, especially if Shepard and Slayton don't play again. There should be more opportunity for Evan Ingram, and he's still only 3,200. So there's some good value at tight end this week. Evan Ingram, Zach Ertz, even like Max Williams had a good game last week. You could maybe go to him. He got 5 targets. I could see using him probably more just in stacks, but 3,400 is super cheap. Yeah, there's good value at tight end, but I think George Kittle's the guy I like most at 5,600 now. Going back to wide receiver, we got 5,900 left for our last 2 spots, 5,900 per player. So, if we want to fit in another running back, there's plenty of running backs we could play. I don't think we're going to be able to fit in another stud running back, but we could probably go to one of these mid-range guys like Saquon or Zeke, maybe like a James Robinson. James Robinson is 6K, especially if Carlos Hyde is inactive again. I mean, James Robinson I do like a lot at 6K. He got 19 touches last week. He played 95% of the snaps. If they're going to utilize James Robinson like that on a weekly basis, I mean, yeah, in a good matchup against Tennessee, Tennessee's defense has not been that great this year. I definitely like James Robinson. I'll be interested to see, what his ownership comes in this week, if he's going to be highly projected or not, or what his projection comes out to be. Even if he's going to be even if he doesn't project well, I still think James Robinson is 6K. I like him a good amount in that mid-range at running back. Let's plug him into our first look lineup, and then that leaves us 5,800 at receiver. I know there's some receivers we can find that we can play here. We could play Jamar Chase at 5,800, especially if T. Higgins is out. I mean, Jamar Chase, tougher matchup against Green Bay. He might see a lot of Jair Alexander, but Jamar Chase, super talented, going to get the opportunity. You expect this to be a game where Cincinnati probably going to be playing from behind. Even at home they are, let's see. Even at home, Cincinnati is 5-point dogs right now. Or no, 3-point dogs, excuse me. So even at home, they're 3-point dogs, but this game does have a 50.5 implied total. So we're expecting a lot of points scored here, or at least Vegas is. 5,800 for Jamar Chase. Might not be like a cash game play, but tournaments, yeah, you could definitely go there. And I think just plugging him into our first look lineup is totally fine. So that's kind of my first look at this, this week 4 or week 5 slate, guys. Crazy this already week 5. This is just a first look, kind of quick run through of each position, build out a lineup, just kind of what stands out for this week 5 slate. Obviously, this lineup is not set in stone. We still got to wait on injury news. I mean, George Kittle, we got to make sure he's going to play this week. We want to make sure that Trey Lance is going to be the starter. We don't really know that yet. Want to make sure that Dalvin Cook, gets full practices in and he's going to be ready to go. But this looks like a solid first look lineup for now. Hope you guys did enjoy this video, though. I appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below. Let me know some of your favorite plays for this week 5 slate, and maybe let me know how your week 4 went, if you were able to make any money. I'm always reading the comment section, always trying to interact with you guys. Always appreciate all your guys' comments and the feedback as well. But good luck this week. Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in the next video. Peace.